Good morning, my dear students.
Good morning, Mr. Albert.
Today you are going to discuss a very important topic in your genetics course, which is mitosis.
So what is mitosis, Mr. Albert?
Have you ever wondered how did you come to this world? Or what happened to yourselves before you were born? Well, mitosis is half the answer to that question.
How is that, mister?
You already know from the anatomy chapter we previously studied that our bodies are formed by multiple systems. Each system has a number of different organs. Each organ is simply a group of tissues, and each of those tissues contain a group of similar cells which perform the same function and has the same shape. But we must ask ourselves, where did all this begin? At a certain time, our bodies consisted of just one cell, which we call the zygote. The zygote carries the combination of half the genetic information donated by both parents through the male's sperm and the female's ovum. These two cells are formed through another type of division which we call meiosis. The meiosis will be discussed in a later chapter included in your course. The sperm produced by the male's testicles through the mother germ cells, and the ova produced by the female's ovaries through the mother germ cells as well. The ovum leaves the ovaries and fall into the fallopian tube, where it meets from 500 to 300 million sperms. All of them share in breaking down its shell. Afterwards, only one succeeds to enter and fertilize the ovum. The outcome cell is what we call the zygote. After the zygote is formed, it descends through the fallopian tube into the walls of the endometrium in the uterus, where it starts its mitotic division.
But our bodies develop by time and we grow up, right?
Exactly. The division of cells responsible for the growth of our bodies and replacing the old cells. That's what we call mitosis. So, what does mitosis scientifically mean? Does anyone know?
It's a type of cell division?
Yes, it's a type of cell division, where each cell divides into two identical cells similar to the original one and carrying the genetic data of the same mother cell. This occurs in all the cells of our bodies, except for two types of cells which do not undergo division. Can anyone give us an example?
Yes, Mr. Albert. Like nerve cells.
Absolutely right. Can you give us another example?
Yes, muscle cells do not divide either.
Exactly. That is correct.
How does mitosis happen, Mr. Albert?
Mitosis composed mainly of 4 stages. These stages are responsible for the regeneration of cells in the exact same form as its predecessor or parent cell. Thanks to mitosis, mammals are able to continuously regenerate skin, hair, red blood cells, and repair wounds. We can even regenerate our liver to its original size from only 20% of its original mass through a form of mitosis known as mass proliferation. Before the cell undergoes mitosis, it spends 90% of its time preparing for division. This preparation stage is called the interphase, where the cell is either growing or duplicating the DNA material or carrying out the normal cell functions. Once the preparation is finished, the cell undergoes the first stage of mitotic division, which is called the prophase, during which the duplicated DNA condenses into compact structures known as chromosomes. Remember, the DNA has already been duplicated in the interphase. While the DNA is condensing into chromosomes, the nuclear envelope surrounding the DNA begins to break down. This happens to the DNA compacted into this chromosome structure can be accessed by the rest of the cell. The second phase is called the metaphase. In this stage of mitosis, the chromosomes align in the center of the cell which is called the equatorial plate. Organelles known as centrioles move to the polar ends of the cell and project thin spindle fibers to connect to the center of each chromosome. Those points are called centromeres. Essentially, the cell is grabbing each chromosome at its center so it can pull it into equal pieces. The third stage is called the anaphase, during which the centrioles will begin to pull each chromosome into two halves called sister chromatids. Each chromatid contains the same information. The fourth stage is called the telophase, in which the nuclear membrane forms around the chromatid and they are completely located at opposite ends of the cell. The extra stage is called cytokinesis. Usually after the telophase, the cell will also divide its cytoplasm and pinch off into two separate but identical daughter cells. Each daughter cell is an exact copy of the parent cell before the DNA was duplicated during the interphase.
Why does mitosis happen, Mr. Albert?
That is a very good question. All the cells in our bodies, when they become old or have abnormal changes, they undergo apoptosis, which means normal or physiological cell death.
What is the result if apoptosis did not happen?
Then these abnormal cells will continue to duplicate and escape the normal division regulation. This is where tumor arise.
What about the criteria of these abnormal cells?
These criteria can be seen microscopically. They include the increase of the mitotic activity either in rate, pattern, or site. Another one of the criteria of these cells are the increase in the nuclear cytoplasmic ratio, more than 1/4 to 1/3, which is the normal ratio. The criteria also includes poikilokaryonosis, which means the division of nucleus without the division of the cytoplasm, which will result in multinucleated cells. Nuclear pleomorphism, which means the abnormal shape of nucleus inside the cytoplasm. Hyperchromatism, which means the DNA inside the nucleus is darkly stained under the microscope. Another one of the criteria is the abnormal mitotic figures.
Why our bodies do not automatically destroy these cells?
That's because these cells are originally normal body cells, so sometimes the immune system does not recognize them, and thus they continue to grow without a limit.
How can we destroy these cells?
Well, there are many ways which we can kill these cells. One of these methods are the chemotherapy. This therapy mainly targets the fast growing cells in your body. That's why we see people undergoes chemotherapy without their hair. That's because our head cells are one of the most fast growing cells in our bodies. So they are one of the most affected cells by chemotherapy besides cancer cells. These cells have their own growth hormones. Thus, they attract and promote the growth and proliferation of the blood vessels around them, getting the proper nutrition and oxygen. This helps them to grow and escape the regulation system. Oh, that's our time for today, my dear students. We'll meet in the next class. Goodbye.